Welcome into this week's edition of 360 Sports. We're talking is the final college basketball show of the season. I'm your host, Jacob Rudy, joined alongside Brendan Kern, Cameron Coulter, and Jack Kelly. Florida are the 2025 NCAA champions after defeating Houston in the final minute last night. Houston led for the majority of the game before the Gators stormed back to win it. Guys, what were your thoughts on not just this game, but the Final Four as a whole?
This was one of the better Final Fours I've ever seen. I mean, 4-1 seed's a bit chalk, but I mean, this is amazing basketball. It was such good basketball.
It was fun last night. I didn't expect it to be that close. I mean, Houston jumped out to a 12-point lead, and I was like, whoa, here comes Houston. And then, of course, they blow it. So
I think it was incredibly entertaining. It was basically 3 comeback wins. I mean, you had Florida coming back on Auburn. That was a more drawn-out comeback. You had, obviously, the Duke choke. Yeah. And then the game last night, I said it earlier, I think it's probably the best Final Four that we've seen in the last 20 years, easily in my lifetime.
Yeah, I thought the Houston comeback against Duke was the most surprising one because of the fact that that's not the way Houston's wired. They're a defensively oriented team, and they're efficient on offense, but they're slow-paced, and so I was surprised to see them make that comeback. Let's touch on that game first. What were your overall thoughts on that game?
LJ Cryer picked them from the depths against Duke. I mean, they were out of the game. LJ Cryer kept them in it. Both their guards kept them in it. And then that run, Houston with the scrappiness to keep fighting, hit a couple threes late. That was a crazy one. I came on here last week and said Houston was going to beat Duke, and I looked crazy, but it happened.
Yeah, that was a good call. For Duke fans, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Malawach, 0 rebounds in the game. We knew offensive rebounds were going to be a problem for Duke. Malawach, 7'3" center, gets 0 rebounds. You can't do that. Flag put the team on his back. Knipple had 16 or 17
was amazing
points.
that game too.
Very good, but again, you blew a very big lead to a Houston team, and I get that. Just amazing comeback for Houston. I give all the credit, but Duke, I thought this was the one.
And I'm going to compare this, like all 3 of these games kind of together because they felt the same. This was the one where Duke had the game for 39 minutes and 30 seconds. They were playing great basketball, and then all of a sudden you have the steal in the inbound pass, you have the Emmanuel Sharp 3, you have the steal in the inbound pass, you have the dunk, then Proctor missing the free throw, which I feel like isn't talked about a lot because obviously the foul happened right after, but it was just a series of horrible things that hadn't happened the whole game, and they all happened immediately.
Proctor did it in 2022 against North Carolina. Missed 2 free throws, and they were very big free throws in a game. My buddy Mitch said Proctor would cool off eventually, and he was shooting the best from 3 in the tournament besides Clayton, and he cooled off and did not. Was a senior, you have to lead that team, and he didn't. I mean, Flag led the team, but Flag had a good open look at the end. I mean,
I was going to say, I like the
shot.
I like the
Juwan Roberts
again,
all
good
game
defense.
played really good defense.
When you score one bucket in 10 minutes and 30 seconds, you just don't deserve to win the game. And at the end of the day, you just don't deserve to win the game.
That's the thing is a lot of people are pointing to that foul call that on Flag on that last rebound, but you can't point to that and say that's why Duke lost the game, especially when that wasn't the only call that. Like there were calls that went Duke's way in that game that clearly shouldn't have. The most notable one was when the ball hit I forget who it was, but one of the Duke players' foot went through the legs and they ruled it Duke ball. And it's like you can't just blame the game on that.
You can't blame the refs. You can't blame Flag shot at the end. You have to blame Duke as a whole team to score one bucket in 10 minutes.
Pass Sion James, I think it was, who just completely threw the ball away.
Yeah, and you tell me John Shire, a coach like Kate, in his magnitude, doesn't have one play to get through Houston's defense. But again, you don't score in 10 minutes. You just do not. You score one basket, you just don't deserve to win the game at the end.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's move over to the other game, Florida and Auburn. Florida also with a comeback win in that game. In this game, I believe trailed by as much as 9. Didn't quite get to double digits like Texas Tech and last night. But this one you kind of saw coming. Florida got hot early in the second half, and at that point, they just took over the game.
We saw like all tournament with Florida the second half. I mean, they did it. We'll talk about the national championship game in a second. Janai Broome first half was amazing. He was all over Florida, and then they really focused on Broome, stopped Broome, and that's why they won the game.
I honestly thought Auburn was going to win that game.
I thought so too.
I did too.
The way the first half went.
The first half, I felt like Auburn was a better team out there, and I knew Florida was very obviously well-rounded. Obviously, they won the championship, but I honestly thought it was. I mean, Auburn was doing very well. Janai Broome was just his post where Todd Pettiford was going off. Like Clayton was not limited, but he wasn't as much as he has been. And I just thought Auburn was going to win that game in another comeback. I mean, obviously the 3 games are comebacks, basically.
Even how the second half went, even when Florida was making the runs, I remember Baker Mazara hit like a couple threes back-to-back, had like a 9-0 run himself.
He had a couple deep threes.
And
like they weren't easy
that
pull-ups.
point, I thought Auburn had it.
Yeah,
for them to come back, Walter Clayton is unbelievable.
I think
He
that's
was
the big key,
unbelievable.
though, is that Auburn wasn't consistent enough. And it happened in most of their losses this year that they weren't consistent enough from the outside. They didn't have that one guy. Like, Janai Broome was the focal point of this offense, and they didn't have that one guy that they could go to from the outside to say, go make this play, go win us this game. It was focused around Janai Broome. And when you had the three-point shooting ability that Florida did, when they were on, they weren't missing. And I think that was what ultimately hurt Auburn in this one.
100%.
I think what stood out to me, not Clayton's 34-point game, it was Alex Condon looked horrible in that game.
Yeah.
He had 1 point, but when you've got the depth that Florida does, you got Ruben Chinulu, you got Thomas Houck, it didn't matter that he had a bad game. I mean, you're able to plug and play these guys, and both of them had very good games. Chinulu had a clutch offensive rebound on the missed free throw at the end that pretty much sealed it. And I mean, Condon, he didn't play great in the national championship, which we'll touch on. But with that team, like, you can have guys that have off games and it doesn't matter.
Let's move to the national championship. Florida in the final seconds off of a turnover by Houston when they couldn't get the last shot away, winning the game by 2 points. Guys, what were your thoughts on last night's national championship?
I wanted Houston to take it so bad. I wanted Houston to take it just because they never won a national championship. I mean, Florida's won a couple, but just like Kelvin Sampson, I wanted Kelvin Sampson to get one. Late, they led for 17 seconds until they took the lead late. You can't lose that game for Houston. Up 12 in the Natty. The way Houston plays, I can't believe they threw that away.
To me, I don't know why Cryer doesn't take that shot. I get he's being close out, but you didn't even get a shot up. I mean, what was it? Like, it could have been, what was it? Going to be a travel if he didn't put that ball.
If he had picked it back
yeah,
up.
like,
which would have been
it was
better
a heads
off
up play.
also.
We could say that, but it was a good heads up play. I mean, he wasn't getting the shot off. He
was,
should have probably pump fake, but to throw it on the ground and shield the ball.
Just throw up, you're 22 seconds coming down the court, and you don't take a
all
shot.
Down the stretch was unbelievable.
And at the crucial time in the game, they just showed up more than Houston did.
Yeah.
And again, another blown lead.
Yeah, I think the irony in that play at the end was that the entire first half, the reason Houston took that lead is because Florida kept running ball screens, they kept switching it, and they had the athletes to stay with Clayton, kind of keep him on the outside. And that last play, Florida did the exact same thing. They switched out, Houck switched out, which forced the ball out of Cryer's hands, and then Clayton had a great contest that ended up forcing the travel. It's just exactly what Houston did, but Florida did it late and better.
Clayton not as impactful on the offensive side, but when you look at that, who was the guy guarding LJ Cryer at the end? It was Walter Clayton with the contest. So I got to give obviously the best player in the tournament this year for the award, but I mean, Walter Clayton, big stud for
I'm going to touch on that in a second. I want to talk about the last possession. You know, we see it all the time at the end of games. It's hold for the last shot. Don't give the other team a chance to score. But if I'm Houston, I'm going down and just shooting, getting the first good shot I can, which obviously they didn't get one. But they tried to run down some clock before that. If I'm them, I'm not wasting any time because the amount of offensive rebounds that they had in that game, you're likely to get a second chance opportunity. And B, you're the number one defensive team in the country. Go down, make a shot, play defense, which is your bread and butter. But the thing with Walter Clayton, and this was why it really surprised me that Florida ended up winning that game, because this seemed like the type of game that it would be like the game that Kelvin Sampson wrote the script for a while. Florida, they shut down Walter Clayton. Florida was really struggling to score, and Houston was winning on the defensive level, which, as I mentioned, was their bread and butter. But ultimately, once Florida got back in the game, Houston, similar to what I just talked about with Auburn, outside of Cryer, didn't have another guy that they could go to. You know, they had multiple guys with 8 or 9 points, but Cryer was the only guy in double figures, and most of the players on this team were struggling to shoot last
really
night.
bad.
If Cryer wasn't going to make the shot, who was going to make the shot for Houston? I think that was ultimately what cost them.
I mean, going down the stretch, they missed so many chances at the bucket. I mean, Cryer had one late, threw it up, missed. Juwan Roberts had like 2 or 3 of them where he had open lays, or not open lays, but good looks at a bucket. Late, you have to go. That last shot, you're down 1 point. I think you got to try to get to the rack and maybe cause a foul or get a good look at least.
And I think
to go for 3 is
we
ridiculous.
saw a huge shift in the refereeing between the first and second half. There were a lot lighter foul calls, I think, in the second half. That's why I was surprised in the last possession. They didn't try and go downhill, try and get a cheap foul on one of the bigs, tie it up, go into overtime. Because at that point, they just had to stay afloat. They hadn't gotten a shot up in their last 4 possessions. They kept turning it over. They just had to get something going.
Yeah, second half got really like chippy and dirty all of a sudden. In Florida, we saw with the Tech, the assistant coaches came right off the bench. Obviously, you can't do that.
And then Chinulu got his when he slammed the ball. I mean,
that was
an
bad.
obvious
The first
one.
Tech I didn't like at all because they didn't even step on the court.
second one is the textbook definition. And that felt like it was going to be the swing that Houston was going to pull away because Florida started going on a run and they got 4 free points. I mean, it was.
I forget who's announcing the game last night. He said it best. He said, was it Ian Eagle? Ian Eagle said it best. He said Houston was that defensive team to match the energy, and Florida came out in the second half. They started playing dirty. They started playing to Houston's level, and they outplayed Houston in their bread and butter, like you were saying. And that's why I think they won the game. The Tech obviously caused a lot, but like you were saying, it's ironic too. Like Duke misses all those shots and Houston wins. Houston misses all those shots. Florida wins.
Yeah, it did seem like the officiating was a bit softer in the second half.
Yeah.
And it seemed that way most of the tournament, and that there were a lot of soft foul calls in this tournament. What would you guys rather see in these games? Do you want to see that first half type of officiating that we saw, or the second half?
I want to see him play.
Yeah, I like
yeah.
a mix. Like I like when a basketball game gets like chippy and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
You can see the
Brings
emotions in
energy.
players. But when they're calling every single ticky-tack foul, I hate in any sport. I hate when if a final shot comes down to a foul or something. I just feel like it ruins the game. But I feel like a mix of both, I would be happy with. I think they did a good job last night.
Was good,
yeah, compared to other sporting events this year that were
especially
very bad.
We saw earlier games in this tournament, it seemed like every contested shot at the rim, if there was a foul being called. Like you couldn't drive to the rim without a shooting foul being called. But let's move on now to the women's bracket. UConn and Gino Auriemma won yet another women's national championship, throttling South Carolina in Tampa. What'd you guys think of the women's bracket?
I think Gino's 12-1 now in national championships.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Only lost to South Carolina 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. For UConn, I mean, they were disrespected coming in the tournament. They were the number 1 in the AP poll. 2 seed got given. It's unfortunate because I personally wanted to see Juju versus UConn in the Elite Eight, and Juju went down, which is unfortunate. But UConn smoked them. I mean, this wasn't even a game after like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is. I mean, Paige finally gets her ring. I mean, just a phenomenal bracket. I feel like for women's, obviously, we wanted to see Juju Watkins play. A lot of other stars. We have Olivia Miles from Notre Dame transferring to TCU. Should be fun to see how that works out. Juju Watkins coming back next year. I think the women's is gonna be very fun again. I got into women's like in a couple years. I mean, obviously last year being phenomenal, this year being phenomenal. That championship game was just a blowout. I mean, UConn really took that disrespect to heart.
Yeah, I think we saw, outside of USC, obviously, we saw all the best teams down the stretch, which I think is exactly what you want to see kind of in these brackets.
That's
obviously,
how it should be.
Obviously, you love your Cinderella.
That's how it's made right.
That was the best level of basketball that you're probably going to see, as much as the final score doesn't indicate that. What sucks, though, from the Elite Eight on, the average margin of the average difference in score was over 15 points a game.
Yeah, it was big.
So there were some close games in the Elite Eight, but the final 4 games were blowouts, and obviously the championship game, third largest blowout in championship game history.
Very big blowouts.
But it's the best teams. So if that's what happens, that's what happens.
That's why it surprised me how dominant UConn was in this game, because of how dominant South Carolina was in their previous games, even though UConn did beat them 87-58 earlier this year. But we've kind of seen this in college basketball, that it's really been focused on the big superstars. You know, you saw Sabrina Ionescu at Oregon a couple years ago, that maybe they could have won the national championship had the tournament not been canceled because of COVID. Then you went to, obviously, Caitlin Clark, didn't win a title, but went to 2 straight national championships, and you had some of the headliners on LSU like Angel Reese. And then this year it comes to Paige Beckers, even though really the star of the national championship game and probably the future of this UConn program was the freshman Sarah Strong, 24 points, 15 rebounds in this game.
Yeah, that big 3 was nasty for UConn.
I was going to say, between Strong, Beckers, and Fudd, they outscored South Carolina.
Yeah.
Those 3 on their own. I mean,
ridiculous. I mean, South Carolina beat the brakes off UCLA and then got beat the brakes off.
Yeah, they got boat raced. It was.
So I want to see if you guys know the answer to this. This is now the second time in 3 years that a non-number 1 seed has won the women's tournament. When was the last time before LSU that not number 1 seed won the women's tournament?
Notre Dame. No.
It's been. I was going to say, it's been a huge run of the top teams, the UConn, South Carolinas. It's.
I'm trying to remember.
I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell
you.
you.
Texas A&M was a 2 seed in 2011.
Wow.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, it's been
11. Wow.
I didn't know if Enrique Rubali won it for Notre Dame, but I think they were one.
I think they were one.
Were they one?
They were one.
I feel like they were 2.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The women's bracket has had 4 times where the Final Four has been all number 1 seeds, and obviously that wasn't this year. UConn was a 2 seed. The men's bracket is now up to twice that has happened. But moving on, with the NCAA basketball season officially concluded, let's head to the board and pick our favorite moment from this college basketball season. I believe, Cam, you're up first.
Yeah, give it a sec before we get everyone set up and ready to go. Just making sure we're all good.
Yep, Cam's up first.
All right, for my pick, shout out Greg Gumbel, one shining moment. Flash up there. Cooper Flagg as a whole. I said obviously winning AP Player of the Year. I mean, for a Duke fan, like my whole family, we loved Cooper Flagg, one of the best Duke players ever, especially as a freshman. Obviously, didn't win. Hopefully, he comes back for one more. 19-7-4 as a freshman. Phenomenal player. Just phenomenal tournament for him. And you know what? Hope he comes back for one more year.
Is Cooper Flagg the best freshman ever?
I don't know. I really haven't looked much into it. I gotta say, I mean, he's definitely up
this
there.
season was
I mean, you gotta
He's
throw in,
definitely
like,
up
you
there.
throw in like Carmelo Anthony into that.
Yeah, there's a
conversation.
I was gonna say, I feel like it really depends on how you value it, whether it's the skill or the accolades. I feel like Cooper's got a great blend of both. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I remember a conversation earlier. He might be the best Duke freshman ever, which that I think would be more reasonable to come to. But like I said, when you throw out guys like Carmelo Anthony or Anthony Davis, I think
but Duke freshman all time, probably. I mean, with Zion, Zion,
he was definitely better than Zion this year.
No, I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying, like, when you look at the guy, Duke is obviously.
No, Duke is Duke. They bring in.
Yeah, they bring in everyone. Kyrie's season was pretty. Yeah, I would say he's probably the best freshman, Duke wise.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Brandon, I think you're up next. What do you got for us?
All right, so my pick was what was at the time the best game in the tournament. It was Arkansas and Texas Tech. This game had everything. Arkansas was up 13 points, I believe, with 4.5 minutes left. JT Toppin and Darian Williams of Texas Tech absolutely took over. Huge shots down the stretch. Darian Williams with the 3 to tie the game, sent to overtime, where we saw some elite offense. We had back and forth, bucket for bucket, with Darian Williams hitting the game winner at the end. I feel like this game, kind of as a whole in the tournament, is forgotten about because of what happened to Tech and their collapse against Florida and just the great games that we saw this past weekend. But this is probably the game that I had the most fun watching just as a college basketball fan.
Yeah, that Razorbacks team, man.
It really looked like they were going to be the Cinderella team of this tournament.
To me, that St. John's, Arkansas was really good. And then for them to play Tech like they did.
I can't believe they threw out that game.
When I saw the score, when they were up, as you mentioned, 13 or whatever it was, with just a few minutes left, I thought to myself, Arkansas is going to the Final Four because this is just the second time since 2012 that there hasn't been a seed 7 or lower in the Final Four, and the only time that it didn't happen was 2019 when Auburn was a 5 seed.
I mean, we were looking at like the tournament as a whole. Obviously, Walter Clayton was the standout player. If Arkansas were to win that game, who knows how much momentum they would have had? We would be looking at John L. Davis, who had 30 points in this game. Yeah. He would have been the hero, kind of the face of the Cinderella.
I still
of
can't
this
believe
tournament.
he didn't get that last shot. Now I'm thinking about it.
But again, what have we talked about all show? Is just big leads that just
and it was all in this region. It was Florida, Texas Tech, Arkansas. It was all in this region.
And that graphic that they threw up with Calipari, when he never lost the game at halftime when leading by like 15 or something. He was like 36-0 in the tournament.
As much as we didn't have like the madness of a Cinderella team of multiple teams, we had the madness. We had great games, and we had the madness of comebacks and big leads that didn't matter in the end, and shots at the end. Yeah. Like, it was fun.
And I think Arkansas was a very fun team. JT Toppin is kind of like, I don't want to say one of the more underrated players, but not talk about like all the attention this season has really gone to Cooper Flagg, Janai Broome, Walter Clayton. JT Toppin was the Big 12 Player of the Year, averaging over 19 or 18 points a game and 9 rebounds. One of the best players in the country that doesn't get talked about.
I think Knox doesn't get talked about enough. Kevin's brother. I think he had a really great run with Arkansas as well.
All right. You talked about Texas Tech taking a game late. I'm going to talk about them throwing a game late. I mean, this game versus Florida, they had it in the bag. I can't believe that they lost this. They were up 4 late. I mean, no, they weren't up 4 late. They were up 6 late. They had chances at the free throw line at a 1-on-1 throwaway. Thomas Hall comes down, hits a huge shot. But again, a 1-on-1. Surely Texas Tech has it in the bag. No, again, another missed 1-on-1. Walter Clayton comes out, hits an unbelievable fadeaway, and then Darian Williams comes up. Texas Tech takes a lead back. It's Walter Clayton time. He hits a huge 3, basically ices it from there on out. Texas Tech, I thought they had it.
Again, another lead that got blown. Again, it's just I thought Tech obviously had cost me a lot of money in this game.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen
let's just say that
missed free throws at the end of a game cost a team as much as Texas Tech since that Trey Jones Duke UNC game back in 2020.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
This is the first tournament I've seen where I've seen multiple fan bases complaining about the 1-and-1 rule, which I think is a staple of basketball, but it's mattered so much in this tournament that fans are so upset. And they're like, we need to get rid of this rule. It's costing our teams games. We've never seen this in the tournament.
It's either won games or lost games.
Exactly. We've never seen it matter this much.
It really hasn't.
All right.
You got.
My pick was, we got the shot by Derek Queen to win it over Colorado State. This is kind of an obvious pick, but for maybe not the reasons you're thinking of. Obviously, Derek Queen with maybe the clutchest shot of the tournament to get them to the regional semifinal. But at the same time, you think about what all was going on with Maryland behind the scenes with what was called the worst kept secret in college basketball with Kevin Willard. Eventually, it was announced after this game that he was leaving for Villanova, even though it was already known at that time that he was going to leave. among the industry. It hadn't been announced publicly yet, but it was pretty well known. But the fact that they stayed with it through all of that speculation and all the turmoil that could have been going on and was going on behind the scenes, an amazing shot, banking it off the glass, as you can see over the high stretch arms of the defender. And then also just the fact, we talked about a little bit earlier in the show of the go-to guy. They sat in this timeout and he said, give me the ball. He wanted to take that last shot. And I think that's one of the things that we need to admire about players is when they are the ones that will say, give me the ball. I want this shot. I want this opportunity, and then go out and execute it. So Derek Queen, my pick for one shining moment.
I think this was our only buzzer beater.
I was just about to say that. I think this was the only true buzzer beater, but as a freshman at 18 years old, is coming to huddle, especially with a lot of seniors on that team and juniors, be like, give me the ball. Yeah. I mean, obviously just declared probably going to be easily a top 10 pick. I feel like maybe top 5. I don't, just depending on the year, but
especially a big man shooting a fadeaway shot. You
He's
don't
from
see
Baltimore
that a whole lot.
Yeah.
That was a nice little homecoming moment. But this is also, if you look at the other side, this is another Cinderella team that we could have had.
Colorado State.
They hit a huge three with 19 seconds left. People aren't going to talk about that, obviously, because of this shot, but it was a great play. They made one more good play. I mean, it's not like, wasn't one of these folds that we were talking about, a blown lead or anything. It was just that they weren't the better team that day.
That was easily
and you can't even say that they blew this one. I mean, look at it right there.
Yeah,
it was a well-contested shot.
And for him
it's
to
as
bank
good
it
defense as you can play. I mean,
that was probably one of the best games, and obviously the only, like you said, the only true buzzer beater, which is crazy in March. But.
Yeah, well, speaking of Derek Queen, I think that's going to transition us well into our next segment. I know, Brendan, I think you've got some to say about him as we talk about guys who may have just made themselves some money in this most recent March Madness tournament, and throughout the month of March. You can throw in the conference tournaments in there as well. Guys, whose draft stock really rose in March?
Talk about Derek Queen. I mean, I don't know how much his draft stock rose because he is a lottery pick, top 10 pick. I mean, I think his game is complete. I kind of see baby Jokic in him a little bit. I mean, he could play make a little bit. I think if he was, from Europe and Slovenian, I think he'd be talked about a little bit more than he is. I really like Derek Queen.
We're starting with the babies again.
I love it.
I actually really like Derek. I'm going to say it's a hot take. I feel like he fits in with the Sixers pretty well. I feel like he's at 4 that can fit alongside
Embiid. I don't see him as a pure 5. I don't think he's the size for a pure 5, so you got to put him in.
He ain't guarding
You also need Embiid to be on the floor for that.
That's true. I'm just saying, for as a just
theoretically,
he could be a good 4, and especially if the Sixers get the pick, 5 to 6 range, I would take him. I think,
especially with Maxey in the backcourt, you load up the front court with a very solid duo. I mean, that's. That's perfect. I
feel like him and Embiid very confident.
I don't know if we'll go top 5 where the Sixers will pick though.
Again, it's like who comes out this year though, because it's like.
But I
it is
can't
hard to
see
say right now.
We don't know. Both Rutgers freshmen could go top 5. Obviously, Coop, if he comes out, will be number 1. Malawach, Knipple, they don't know. I said VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. We don't know. He's another untapped potential kid. He 13.7 during the season, but again, a freshman that we don't know about.
And he's a guy that at this point is slated to go top 5, but it also depends on who declares. I mean, he could slip into that 6-7 range.
Yeah, we're in that point where it's like we're going to slowly get into a transition of who declares, because I believe the draft is when.
I think it's July.
Or after the finals. Like they have months to decide, and obviously we're in that stage right now where we really don't know.
I have Jaeger Demon down here too. He's probably a top 5 pick. He's 6-7 range. I mean, around there. I didn't know he could shoot the ball this well. I didn't think he was talked about shooting the ball this well. And then he came out first 2 rounds and lit it up. I really like his game. Big guard. I don't know if he plays point guard at the next level, but I really like Jaeger Demon.
Another guy I wrote down that we mentioned earlier, Con Knipple. I mean, if he does declare, in the last 3 games of the season, he had 57 points on 31 shots.
Yeah.
I mean, he was hyper efficient. And if he gets drafted, that's probably the role he's going to be playing. He's going to be playing an off ball. And he's proven that he can work the pick and roll. He can shoot very efficiently. He can play off ball. I mean, again, very complete player. He's got size for a wing guy. He can defend fairly well. He's a smart player. I mean, it's another guy that's got everything, but is he going to go to the draft? We don't know.
He kind of reminds me of like a better Dalton Knecht. I don't know. I feel like he's like that off the ball shooter. Like I just feel like
I don't know about better Dalton Knecht.
Oh, I would say
better.
I would say better.
If we,
I'm talking about in college. Maybe it'll be better in the NBA, but as a college player,
I'm just saying like same build, same they say do the same thing. Yeah, in college I would give it.
But again, we saw with the games where Flag was hurt, and even if Flag wasn't on that team, we'd be talking about Knipple as a top 2 to 3 freshman. I mean, he was easily like. A lot of those guys, Proctor as well, were in the shadow of Flag, but he has the talent to be a top 10 pick and be a very good rotational piece on a semi-good NBA team.
Yeah, but like what we saw last year with kind of Rob Dillingham, he played well this season, but again, only 18, I think maybe 19 years old now, another guy that's untapped potential. There's so many kids that just don't give a chance to develop in college, which I get. I mean, congrats, you're going to the NBA, you're going to get paid a lot more money. But again, I don't know when those kids are going to be finally ready for the NBA and good enough to start on teams and be very big impactors.
And because of that point that we keep talking about who's going to come out, you could see Walter Clayton rise up. I think he's in kind of a tough spot because he's not he's not a bona fide point guard per se, but he's the size of a point guard, and that sometimes gets guys put in a tough spot when they try to go to the pro level. But the way he shot the ball up until last night, I'd be surprised to not see him continue to rise in these draft rankings, especially if some of these guys that we're talking about don't come out of the NBA draft.
He's a bit older, which will hurt him.
Yeah, the one concerning thing, though, especially we saw it last night, when he got pressured, he turned the ball over a lot.
He wasn't Walter Clayton last night.
He was throwing the ball out of bounds. Now, you can blame some of that on he anticipated something. But you're going to get that pressure in the NBA. You got to be able to handle that, especially if you're going to be a point guard, a primary ball handler. You got to be able to handle that. But we know that he has a shot no other.
Listen, you played against the best defense in Houston. I understand that. But these NBA guys are 10 times better than than some of these guys on Houston. But, you're going to get pressure, especially the point guard's position when you have Drew Holiday and and guys like that. You won't be able to get a shot up.
We harped on his scoring a lot. He had 6 assists last night before he scored his first points. I mean, he was still dishing the ball out when he was getting pressure, but he still had those turnovers that you can't really have in the NBA.
I think at the same time that we've seen championship performances hurt players, Jalen Suggs most notably, he was projected, I believe, the #1 pick in the NBA draft. Didn't fall too far, fell to 5. But it was largely because of that national championship game against Baylor. This isn't a guy necessarily rising in draft stock, but I think he's going to make a boatload in NIL money this year. Bennett Sturts from Drake was one of the top mid-major conference players in the country this year, 21 points in the first round when they beat Missouri. This guy's an exceptional player, and I think if he hits the transfer portal, is going to be making a lot of NIL.
He's going to Iowa.
Is it Iowa?
That's where Drake's coach went. He's going to Iowa.
Which he's going to be the focal point of that offense. And then you could see maybe if you're talking about draft, maybe kind of like late first round, early second round. But I think he still obviously needs that second.
Yeah, that's that
next year.
I wanted Nick Clifford. I don't even have my paper, but he just came to my mind from Colorado State. His conference championship win was insane. Seriously? I see him talking about being the first-round pick now. He really boosted his draft stock. Not really March Madness because they didn't play a lot at Colorado State. I love Nick Clifford at the next level because his turning run was amazing. Mountain West.
Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper for Rutgers are like two guys that I feel like could come back. I feel like they could be top 5 picks.
I think if they both go. I think they'll both be top 5.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Again, like I always say, untapped potential. I mean, those kids are destructive together, and I feel like they just didn't have a good run with Rutgers. Maybe they come back. Maybe next year they're top 5 picks. I don't know.
That would be kind of the unfortunate thing with Rutgers, though, is this was hailed as the year for Rutgers with those two guys coming in, and it didn't really produce much. But we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but we're going to talk specifically about Cooper Flagg now because it's one of the biggest burning questions. Will Cooper Flagg come out, and will he enter this year's NBA draft? Guys, do you think he'll enter, or do you think he's staying at Duke?
I think he should definitely leave. 100%.
I'm so conflicted. Like when last game at Cameron Indoor, he signaled to his dad they did this, run it back. I said if they won a national championship, he'd be gone. I think Malawach and Knipple are both gone. I think Flagg comes back. I hope he comes back as a Duke fan.
I don't see the benefit.
I don't see it either.
I don't really either.
He'd be a top 50 talent in the NBA if he got drafted now. There's no reason then to not go.
But again, he could be #1 pick every single year. So it's like
he's already missing that max
contract.
I understand.
What does he have to develop in college still?
I don't know. I feel like he's just one of those players that just wants to stay.
What I've been comparing it to is another guy that came out of Duke, Jason Tatum. 19 years old, got drafted. This is his 8th year in the league. He's 27. He's still got a half decade of his prime.
Flagg
can enter the draft at 18. He could get 6 years of NBA experience and be entering like an age prime. I mean, that's a dream if you're an NBA
I just
player.
feel like he's got that bitterness in him. Like the way they lost, the way to go out like that.
And if that's the reason, if he does come back and that's the reason,
amazing.
Then that's great.
Yeah,
but I
think that'd be better for college basketball if we start seeing more guys like that.
I think NIL will do that, and I think it's going to be tempting for Flagg because he's going to make so much money in NIL right now.
The problem is though, like with how big these NBA contracts are.
But that's what I mean. Once you get to year 4 and you can make $40-50 million, and then the next 4 years you make 40-50, he's possibly like missing out. And imagine he gets injured next year. Imagine something happens where his draft stock falls, and then you're missing out on that.
I literally would take him with a blown ACL first. I don't care. He's that good.
He might go that high, but I have a hard time seeing him stay just because we've seen it with these one and dones, not just at Duke, but at Kentucky with guys like Anthony Davis, with guys like De'Aaron Fox,
Dillingham did the same thing last
Devin
year.
Booker, exactly. And then at Duke, you got guys like Tatum, like Zion Williamson, Jalil Okafor, Jabari Parker.
Bum.
Let's focus on Tatum. If we're talking
about bum Tatum.
Paulo Banchero's another one, but I mean, you just don't see these guys.
I don't know. As a Duke fan, I want him back.
I know he said it doesn't matter, but you can't tell me that if he's sitting at home and sees that Utah has the first pick, that it's not going to run through his mind.
Washington.
Maybe I should stay and try. I know he said it doesn't matter, but everybody says that. Do you really think the guy wants to go to Utah or go in and try and win a national championship? If that's what he's conflicting, then go win a national championship.
But in that sense, I don't think it'll ever get better. All these smart market teams
it is at the point where the bad NBA teams, they're just so bad.
I don't know, man. I'm so conflicted with this. I just feel like there's not, like you were saying, there's nothing to stay for, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. He's getting paid. Obviously, he just signed with New Balance. Obviously, he's getting paid probably millions, but obviously the NBA contract is.
The NBA contract,
Guys making close to $70 million a year now.
Like, to me, I feel like Malawach goes. I feel like, obviously, Malawach played, like, I forget where he played. He
played in Sudan.
Yeah, Sudan. Like, they said he likes to help out his community. Going to the draft obviously helps him big time, and he can help out his family and stuff. Flag comes from a very prominent family. I'm sure money is nice for him.
Not necessarily a concern.
Whoever it is, $50 million is $50 million.
It is at the end of the day.
I'll just say, I'm not quite sure what Shire's philosophy on this whole thing is. I mentioned Kentucky, and now, of course, Calipari's at Arkansas. If he was at Arkansas playing under Calipari, there is no chance
he's always telling
them
to go.
Calipari wouldn't let him come back.
Exactly.
He's telling him to go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My last word, Cooper Flag, I know you're watching. Go to the draft. Go win an MVP by 25.
Stay one more
unless
year.
it's like Charlotte. Unless it's Charlotte, do not go to Charlotte.
Actually, I would go to Charlotte more than Utah.
Okay, that's true. But
Melo, Coop, Brandon, and Mark.
Melo doesn't want to be in Charlotte.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody wants to be in Charlotte.
Yeah. I think it's Jordan probably.
Yeah.
It might be Jordan.
But that's it for the college basketball season, and that's going to do it for the last college basketball show here on 360 Sports. Thanks for tuning in. From Jack Kelly, Cameron Coulter, and Brendan Kern, I'm Jacob Rudy. Thanks for watching.